don't think this show is actually going where we thought this show was going to go, but I think we're both pretty happy about it. So
Yeah.
let's dive into Skeleton Crew, episode 3. Per the usual, Kevin, what we'll do, let's start off with our rankings. Now, if you watched our live recap the other day, it did get a little bit of copyright. So if you watch the replay, it's jumped around a little bit. We'll have that fixed next go round. But I was very high on this episode.
Crazy.
For me, it was the best of episodes 1 and 2 combined. And so I think I liked it more because of that, right? You get the action, you get like Jod using the Force, some cool stuff like that. You still get the mystery part about Attin, and then you see X-Wings too. Like, how cool is all that? So this episode was an 8.5 for me, just kind of going in to this recap, just kind of know where I'm coming from when I'm so positive about this episode. It's an 8.5.
Yeah, so on the recap, I initially gave it an 8, but I've been thinking about it since, and there's a few things that I'm really excited about going forward, just in the way that they've kind of planned out the story and paced it. So, I mean, based on how it just kind of left me really continuing to look forward and all the fun, I actually did bump it up. So now I kind of feel like I'm at an 8.5 now.
It was fun.
Now it's still below I still think episode 1 was the best for me. Just from a standpoint of how well done it was, I gave that one a 9.
Okay.
But looking back on this, there's not really anything I don't like, and there's some good things I think ahead. So
yeah,
I did adjust my score a little.
Yeah, I think this episode, it wasn't like groundbreaking or anything. This show hasn't been groundbreaking so far, but just as far as like it's entertaining, it's moving a story along. Yeah. It's not doing anything that would like upset the masses. The Easter eggs are like just fun little things. Like, it just seems like a very measured, go with the flow Star Wars show, which is kind of what we needed, I think, at this point. And so I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was kind of thinking about that. I think, as Star Wars fans, sometimes we get so like caught up in like what's going to be the big like lore reveal or the big mystery or like the huge connection to the like. And right now they're just telling a story, right? And it so far it hasn't connected to anything real big. It might at some point. You can go and listen to anybody who likes the show talk about the nostalgia, the just the factor of kind of experiencing things for the first time. You've all heard that from a lot of people, and we agree. But I think even more than that, just the simplicity of it. I don't know. I'll talk about it a little bit later, but just the simplicity. The original movies were simple, right? There wasn't like a lot of like mystery that drew you along in those. Like, they set up a story and they told it. And so I feel like this is kind of honoring that same type of storytelling, which I'm really enjoying.
Yeah, I'm like super into like when they throw lore stuff in. Like, we talk with Ahsoka left and right, like about Mortis and all that. Like,
that's
we're so into that. That's so good. But equally, this is just as good too. Where it's just you show up and you watch and it's fun. Kind of like how Mando started. And then it got deep.
Yeah. And I think we've gotten to a point where we almost view everything through that lens of what's going to be the big thing. And so it's nice to just kind of sit back and enjoy a story.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a good direction that they've chosen to take the show.
Yeah. No, I agree. So let's kind of talk about now where this show is so far at this point of the season. We've talked a little bit, but we're not 100% sure what we expected out of this show anyways, just because it was like pretty tight-lipped as far as what was coming. But I can assure you, this wasn't what we were expecting. Like, we were thinking Jod is the big mystery. Like, who's he going to be? Then we were thinking like, oh, it's going to be a big, pirate, whatever deal. And it still will be, but it kind of seems like, okay, we know who Jod is. And the focus is just these kids getting home, and the big mystery is their home is the treasure planet. Like, that's, I don't think we were thinking that going into this.
No, and it kind of goes along with what I feel like they've been trying to do with this show, which is like put you along with these kids. Because I think we were all just ready to go explore out in space with this show, right? And then you find out, oh, the most interesting part of this show is this planet that you begin on, right?
That's where we started.
And so, the kids are finding that out now. And so I love the irony in that for Wim, and just his desire to get away, and he's gotten away from probably what is the biggest adventure in his life. I mean, I love that. And so, yeah, I agree. You know, if you had told me 3 episodes in that Jod's character would be pretty laid out, right? I mean, we still don't know why or how he's a Force user. So I guess there's still a little mystery behind him.
But does it matter? I mean, that doesn't.
No, because he's totally solidified. He's a pirate. He's looking for the
Yeah.
score, and he's going to do and talk to and sway whoever he needs. Like his
Mhm.
character has really been solidified. And so 3 episodes in, you tell me, well, we're going to take the mystery away from Jod, and we're going to be basically charting the kids back on course to their home. Now, I don't think they're going to make it next episode, but with 5 episodes left, that's where we'd be. I'd been like, no, there's no way. So yeah,
Yeah.
I was totally not expecting to be in this place, but I love it because I have no clue what's in store for these next 5 episodes.
Well, I mean, even better yet for Jod, it's like 35 seconds into the series when you
Yeah,
we knew who he
yeah,
was. So
yeah,
that's kind of like, again, we weren't expecting it. We had like all these like Hundo and Thrawn was my things, and you were like Wild Space, and like maybe
yeah,
we still get all of those things, but at this point, like I don't know that we will, and I don't really care that we will
yeah,
either because I'm pretty interested in the story they're telling. So I think that's a
yeah, for
good thing.
sure. Agreed.
Yeah, so let's do a quick recap of where we're at so far as episode 3 goes. So episode 3 was only about a half hour. It was a shorter one. To me, it felt longer than the second episode. I'm sure it was a few minutes longer, but
Yeah, it was a
it
little
just
bit
had a little
longer.
bit felt like it had a little bit more to it as far as the story goes as well. So we start out the prison break, right? That was probably the first third of the episode was them
Hmm.
getting out of the prison. So like Jod uses the Force. They finally escape. We get some Easter eggs with like the battle droid and I guess the other two droids as well. So
Yeah,
the first droid was like a thing we haven't seen since Return of the Jedi. Maybe like there was a droid kind of like that one in
yeah,
Return of the
he's like some
Jedi.
sort of like secretary droid or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then the middle droid said something about the prince or something,
I
and I
still can't
never
figure out
like
what that's about.
yeah, I didn't have time to actually look that up. And then the third one, obviously, the battle droid. Like, did we win? And then he
That was
goes,
great.
"That was
So good.
so." That's like my kind of Easter egg. I love
Yeah.
that.
Oh, for sure. Because it
Yeah,
reminds you where you are, right? Like the story doesn't have to be isolated. Like it
yeah,
reminds you, hey, we're doing Star Wars,
yeah.
so it is fun.
And we're kind of like the prequels are celebrated again. So let's
Yeah, that's true.
throw the battle droid in and make everybody happy. But we have that's the first third. They get out of prison.
Yep.
I think the second third, correct me if I'm wrong, was just kind of their time on the ship, maybe filling out the situation. Like, okay, how is this dynamic going to work with Jod and the
Yeah.
kids? And you get KB there,
Yeah. Really cool
obviously.
interaction between
Yeah,
KB and Jod, and then that
yeah.
interaction between him and SM-33, which was pretty funny.
I
Yeah.
that was so good. And SM-33 does not like Jod. I mean, he is ready to take him out at a second's notice, like
Well,
at
and I
any
think I
given
think
time.
Jod too knows that, and I think he's a
Yeah,
little more. He shifts a little bit when he's talking
yeah.
to SM-33. He's like, I'm not quite sure about you.
Mhm.
So I like those little subtle differences. I think it's good.
And at some point, this is like way off topic, but they're going to be friends by the end of this. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Like at some point, they're gonna work together. It's maybe they go off in the sunset together. But then the last third of the show was on the literal
Moon.
dark side of the moon.
Yeah.
Like everyone's been posting about like how 80s it is. Like
Yeah.
the last third of the episode was on the literal dark side of the moon.
Yeah.
So
Which,
they go,
man, visually
yeah,
was so cool. Like
looked cool.
as
Yeah,
far as volume shots go, like that was
yeah,
really nicely done. Like just the
yeah,
the immense size of like the background planet and then just the darkness of the terrain. Like
yeah.
that was such a good visual.
It was good color popping too,
It
right? With that
was.
bluish,
Yeah.
pinkish color. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was really good. That's like the money shot they're showing now for
Yeah.
everything from this
The
episode.
silhouette of them walking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so good. And then you've got Kim, the owl,
Yeah.
which was a
Cool new
very
character. Yeah.
interesting character. We learn about the whole, Jewels of the Republic, kind of like a map, or
Yeah.
not a map, but coordinates to Attin, maybe. We get some lore there. Like they're building their own lore within this show, which is
Yeah.
really cool because a lot of times, like, we're just kind of building on what's already there. So they're doing that and then kind of tying the Attin in. It's kind of bookends on this episode where it starts on Attin And then it also finishes with them thinking they're
Yeah.
going back. As far as where the episode starts, that's kind of where our breakdown will start. So we're going to go, our topics are going to be Wendell, kind of him, that realization when we start on Attin. Then we'll talk more about the planet, kind of where we think it's going, because that's kind of the mystery of this show.
Yeah.
We'll talk about KB. She got a lot of character development here. And then we'll also talk about Jod. So there's going to be some edits on this because my baby just started crying. So I don't really remember where we were, but I think we were talking at Attin and Wendell. And kind of our outline, and then talking about KB, and then talking about Jod. So if I've already said this, apologies. 6-month-old was
that's how it goes.
So, cut, resume. But let's talk about this start of the episode. So we started there on Attin, and it was kind of like all these parents, the old 80s movies where like their kids are gone, what are we gonna do? They're separated.
The freak out phase,
the freak out phase. And so that's what's going on. But in the midst of this freak out phase, again, mural playing inside, by the way. This mural that we know nothing of. Playing inside, and Wendell's just sitting on that couch. Wim's dad, Wendell, if you're not familiar with the name. He's just sitting on this couch in like the deepest thought that I've ever seen a Star Wars character in. So like, what's he doing? Is he thinking like, I've got to get out of here?
Yeah.
Is he thinking this whole thing is a sham, like with, the barrier or whatever they call it? Or is he thinking, does he know something that we don't know? And he's like, I've got to get out of here, like, because this isn't the way like it should be, type of thing. I don't know. It's very interesting. And I think they're going to dig more into that as we go.
Yeah. No, as soon as they hear from that droid and he's like, we can't risk contact, right? We're not going to go looking. He sits down and he just completely goes to another place. Like he's either planning or processing or remembering, right? Like he's putting some things together. And so I am really curious as what's going on in his head. There's a couple interesting things there. One, the what is it? The undersecretary, is that her name?
Yeah, that's her name. I don't know her actual name, but yeah.
She doesn't even seem to think that it's true, like that Wendell's lying about it or something, because she's like, they're going to find him. Like they're just here somewhere on the planet. Like I'm assuming Wendell has told them, no, they flew off in a starship, right? That's interesting. And then that droid comes in. I think it's so odd. We get this secretary character. Who knows? Like, is he even on planet? But then the idea that they're not even going to go look for him. Like, I find that suspicious. This planet that is so perfectly hidden, like at least they got to view that as a liability. And so I don't know if they're secretly sending someone out to look for him, because that seems a little too nonchalant with your hidden planet to be like, nah, it's fine. So I don't know if this is all of that.
When you put it like that, it does make you think that maybe they are going to like send, I don't know if they'll send bounty hunters out. Or
it would be crazy to leave kids on a ship talking about Attin out in,
they know too
much.
In
the galaxy.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's true.
There's some interesting stuff in that little sequence.
Yeah, I like that. I like the idea of, because we know if we look, again, bookends of this episode, we know like, okay, bounty hunters, they're putting out people to find them on one end of things, right? From when they were with Kim. They're trying to find Jod and the kids. On the other side of things, are they're also sending people from Attin to find the kids? Because if so, that's going to make a really interesting story point kind of as they go forward.
That'll be interesting.
So I think that's fun. And then also like the obvious thing with the planet. We learned that it's one of the, is it 7 jewels of the Old Republic?
Can't remember. I have to go back and look at that little,
it was 6 or 7
rug thing that she threw out.
Hold on, I can tell you really quick. I've got an article pulled up over here to get the right answer. So it was with a group of planets of wonder kept hidden for their protection, which is the jewels of the Old Republic. That's so interesting.
It is. Like they had already made Attin mysterious, like alluding to this treasure, right? But now they've gone and been like, well, actually, it's one of these jewels of the Old Republic. And Kim talks about, like, they were planets of wonder. Like, what does that even mean? Like, what does it mean to hide away a planet of wonder? Is it
money.
Resources, or is it something bigger? Like, we know Wim has this huge obsession with the Jedi. Like, are they hidden for some reason associated with the Force? Like, I don't know. But even more interesting, she says all but one have been destroyed. And so someone's gone out of their way to, at least if that's true, like, why would you destroy these planets? And so there's a lot of interesting stuff they just injected in there into one really quick little scene that, again, just heightens the mystery of this planet.
I just had an epiphany.
Oh, yes. Let me hear it.
So there's, I think it was seven. I think it was seven planets. I can't seem to find the answer, but it's these wonders, right, of the old republic. So, like in our real world, we have the seven wonders of the ancient world. The only one that still exists is the Great Pyramids that hasn't been destroyed. And inside the Great Pyramids, obviously, like they've sent people in, right? Like you can see, the tunnels and sarcophagi or whatever. But in the trailer, they have that one scene where you're going into like what appears to be inside this temple, and it's like gold everywhere.
That's true. We don't know where that is.
Going to be? Well, I was going to say, is that going to end up being like at the core of that Attin?
Right. It could be on the planet. We assumed with that little shot that they found it somewhere out in this crazy galaxy, but who knows? Like it could literally be on that Attin.
So is this just going to be a play on like our seven wonders? I don't know. Like that seems like it would be too obvious, but like it seems like a national treasure scene. Like
yeah, it does. When they go in there. Thing. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm interested in it, and it does make me wonder. Like, is it just going to be a gold chase, and like there's not much to it, or is this where they really start digging deep into like people have speculated, but like, oh, is the Emperor using this to funnel resources, stuff like that? Like, is there a reason like they've all been destroyed, but this one made it, and he's using it, and it's just a whole lot of money going his way because the kids talk about like, oh, they all
analyze money.
Analyze money.
That's true.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Like, where's it going?
I don't know. And I could easily see that being like a practical thing where somebody's got something where they're funneling resources from this planet, but with the amount of focus they have placed on Wim's obsession with the Jedi, I feel like there's got to be something by the end of this show that they discover
payoff
that gives him this connection with the Jedi.
Yeah,
I don't know what it'll be. Maybe it's Jod. All right, maybe in some way Jod didn't do much in the Order. I don't know. He doesn't seem to have a huge talent for the Force. It doesn't.
I feel like
we haven't seen him do a whole lot.
Yeah.
So I don't really know that I think he came from the Jedi, but there's got to be something in this show that rewards Wim and kind of bolsters up his idea of who the Jedi are, right? That there are heroes. Like that's the big Star Wars thing, that there are heroes in the galaxy.
You mean like when Luke Skywalker saves him?
Well, I want you to go ahead and temper your expectations here.
No, it's more realistically going to be like a Grogu or an Ezra situation.
But yeah, there's got to be something. I feel like they've set him up that way that because I think he's about to go through a period where he kind of gets on more of the downside because he's finding out Jod's not who he thought he was, and so I feel like there's got to be something by the end that restores that. But we'll
is he going to learn that the Jedi don't exist? Like
I feel like they got to at some point.
Happened. That's going to be like a big moment for him.
I could see a situation where Jod snaps and is like, the Jedi are gone, right? Like you keep talking about the Jedi, they're gone. Like this thing that you're obsessed with.
We got into this situation.
I could see something like that happening.
Yeah, because they didn't know about Alderaan. Again. Yeah, they don't know about anything outside of it. So it makes you like, and wouldn't the Emperor want like this Attin planet just to be living so far, so far removed from everything? Just so, I mean, because people obviously when they catch on to the fact that he's horrible, they rise up, right? You have the Galactic Civil War. So like having this one group of super loaded people off on the side, like that know nothing of anything. And their great plan or great work or whatever, like it almost lines up too well for it not to be something nefarious like that.
Yeah, I would agree.
That's kind of like I don't know where we're going with the planet, but I know where I would like.
I love it. And on our prediction episode, this is one of the things I'm really impressed about. Because on our prediction episode, I was like, I don't want to go back and forth to Attin, right? Like I just want to stay with the kids, but now like they have made me completely change my mind. Like I want to go back. I was like, no, we need to know more about what's going on here. Let's go back to the parents. Let's find out what's going on there. So props to them for making me care about the planet.
Yeah, we have to know about the mural.
Yes. Oh, if they don't explain that mural, I'm going to be upset.
We're going to riot. Yeah, I'm going to have that mural like up on my wall here and still not even know what it's about. It could be like a cult thing. I don't know.
On a random side note, I did discover, because Wendell looked familiar to me, and he's actually the lead singer of TV on the Radio. Ever heard of that band? Back several years ago, they had a big song on the radio I think it was called Wolf Like Me or something, or Wolf Like Us or something. Anyway, it's a pretty good song. But anyway, he's a
Interesting.
singer.
I have to look it
Yeah.
up. I'm more familiar with radio on the TV. So let's move from Attin because we
Yeah.
could like spew about that for
Yeah.
a really long time.
Yeah. We could.
So let's jump into KB. So like we talk a lot about like honestly the first two episodes focused on three-fourths of the kid, like Fern, Wim,
Yeah.
and obviously Neil. Like we've talked a lot about Neil. We will continue to talk a lot about Neil. But KB really shines in this episode.
She does.
Like she gets to do her little analyzing thing. She's like the C3PO of like I calculated the odds and you're not a Jedi.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah, and she knows somebody's coming in that hallway. She tips him off, and then I love that scene where she's awake, and he can tell she's awake, and she's just watching him, right? Like you kind of get the feeling that she feels like she kind of has to take care of everybody because she's the smart, observant, on top of it character of these kids, right? And so I really feel like she feels responsible, and so there's probably a lot of pressure on herself. And then in that exchange with Kim, right, where she's kind of the one who has the means to reach out and look for help, and they get back on the ship. She's the one putting in hyperdrive coordinates. Like,
yeah.
She's got a lot on her plate right now.
Well, I was going to say it's very quickly established that she's the one who's got all of her stuff together and can actually like maintain whatever it is. Because like Fern is like, I'm not even sleepy. She's asleep.
Yeah.
So like as a former counselor for many years in college, that's like a tale as old as time. I'm not sleepy yet. And like 10 minutes later, out. But that was that situation. We know that like Wim's head is so far up the Jedi story that he can't, see what's going on around him.
Yeah.
And Neil is just, man, I'm here, right? Like,
yeah.
So you get a lot about all these characters, but you learn the one getting the true responsibility and like the big ticket items. Is going to be KB.
Definitely KB.
And that's appropriate, right? Like very level-headed character. She's not going to be the big hero. She's not going to be, the out front person. So yeah, she's probably the trustworthy one as far as the group goes. And I think it's cool that you get some time spent on that character because that doesn't always happen.
Yeah, that was a really good interaction between her and Jod. Just to kind of, again, you see how manipulative he can be, how he knows what to say to people. He never loses his cool, but at the same time, she has not bought in yet.
She's right through it.
She's hesitant. So
yep. And it does make me wonder too with her, like what's her deal, right? With the eye thing and like the cybernetics, like she's some part like android or whatever, right? Because she's like running all of the probabilities on this stuff.
Yeah.
So like I almost want to know more about like what exactly is
she? Yeah, she's a lot like
with that thing she's got going.
Lobot from Cloud City. From kind of the same setup.
Yeah, I would be interested to know, like, and maybe it's not important in the story, but like, how is this person in her brain just running all of, the statistics? I feel like there's some kind of cybernetic thing going on there for sure.
I definitely think there's a lot more going on in her head than all the other kids.
That is true. Notice how, like, when they're all getting into their roles, he like sends Fern and positions because like that's like go cause some trouble.
Just shoot in their direction.
Yep, y'all go cause trouble.
And then Neil, he's like, just wiggle the stick. Just move it around a little. That was funny.
Anything with Neil in it, I'm here for. Now, I do think KB is going to end up being like very key as far as getting them where they're supposed to be going the whole time. Yeah. Like the rest of them will probably be adventuring, and she's probably going to be the one that's like, okay, this is where we're getting, and this is like when we're in the planets, hey, this is what we need to do. But I don't see her being like much into action. So just kind of the setup.
No, I think she's planning. She's thinking about the next step. I'm kind of curious because I mean, I don't think most of us would agree they're probably not making it to Attin next episode, even though that's where they think they're going. So I mean, to me, it kind of makes me wonder: is she not willing to take Jod back? Like, did she somehow alter the coordinates she was putting in? Is she taking them somewhere else? Like, how much does she know about hyperspace travel? Like, there's a lot of questions there, but who knows? Maybe she's the one that derails them from getting back and does it on purpose.
That would be pretty cool if she starts taking like some precautionary steps for her friends.
Just to,
I think she's super smart. I think, and
she's glad, a cool character.
Like, I don't know how much more character development we'll actually get of her other than her just playing into the role. But it was nice for them to kind of take a breather on everybody else just for a few minutes in the episode to let it shine on her. Agreed. I was a big fan of that. So let's move into our last topic. We've got Jod. This is where
Jod
the
Nanawood.
majority. Jod Nanawood, Crimson Jack. What's his pirate name?
Captain Silvo.
Captain Silvo.
Yeah.
So he's the one who this episode mainly focuses on, which makes
Yes.
a lot of sense. He was the big reveal
Yeah.
at the end of the second episode. So we learn he's not a Jedi, right? Like we kind of thought that. And he gets to that point where like they have to confront him at the end. He's like, "Well, I never said that. You said that. You said I was a Jedi." And so we get his Captain Jack alter ego, which is like they're all fearing him, right? Like, "Oh, it's Captain Jack" or whatever. And that's like a cool Easter egg that I've recently learned of. It's like it's part of it was with the whole Galaxy's Edge Halcyon deal, but also like a 1977
even further
comic. Like, yeah, he was like Han Solo's arch rival, which is pretty funny. Like as far as comic books go, he had some Jabba the Hutt tie-ins, and then we get you had mentioned this earlier when we were talking, but like the Star Wars official account had to like acknowledge, no, he's not that Captain Jack, but what you need to know is Jod will lie about anything.
He'll be anybody he needs to be, right? Yeah. And you brought up when he says, like, I didn't say that to the kid. Like, he still doesn't say no. Like, he does not give a direct response to anything. And I think that's just his measured way of always making sure he's got a way out, right? Never commit or say anything that can't be turned around or made into something else.
Yeah. He would be an excellent politician.
Yeah, he's. I feel like he's a lot like Space Jack Sparrow in some ways.
Yeah, yeah, one step ahead of trouble.
Yeah,
for the most part.
I love his interaction with the old pirate guy. I can't remember his name. He's the Ishitib guy.
The one that looked like a Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, and he's like, character. You were the best captain I ever had, and then like they really solidified his.
Is that his name, Doc?
Maybe I don't remember.
Maybe it was.
Started with a P. His last name did. But anyway. Yeah, I feel like they did a lot to solidify who Jod has been and kind of removes, like, we still don't know all about the force power thing, but they removed a lot of mystery surrounding who he is and what his goal is. They made that pretty clear.
You would assume being a scoundrel or dash pirate with the force, he would be a pretty good one.
Yeah.
And he like appears to always just be on the cutting edge of trouble versus like actually being very good at what he does. So it's going to be interesting to see like if he develops more into like actually doing something big versus
I think he
just
will.
kind of meddling.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the reasons they've set up his character to be so clear on the front end, because it allows you to see character change a little bit better. But I love when he's talking he's just saying all like the Jedi cliche things. He's like, he's like, the Force very well, or the Force flows through all of us. Like, he's just saying stuff where you're like, he's just repeating things he's heard somewhere about the Jedi. Is kind of the feel you get.
The galaxy, and he has heard it all. So like, he's a very well traveled man.
Yeah. So I love that side of him. It's funny.
I do like also where they're going to meet the owl woman, Kim, and he's like, he says, "Now listen, she'll backstab. Yeah. She's gonna say whatever," and he's like, he's telling the truth because she's not backstabbing them. She's just like,
she knows him.
Hey, she knows him, and so he's framing it in like
he is
the history of.
You're right.
I'm the good guy.
Yeah, he's going ahead and prepping the kids that she's going to turn on him because he's the bad guy, but he can't make it seem that way. Yeah, that's totally what he does.
And that's exactly what she does. And so I do like at the end where, and now obviously there's a lot that happened in and around that, but he just has to keep telling the kids, like, we're going, we're doing all this, because he thinks he's
like, I'll explain later, we're going.
Yeah, like he's found this jackpot with the whole Attin kids. It's finally his big break. So he's like bringing them along, and he's making like funny jokes like, when you're old, this will be harder to do, things like that. And so like he's very relatable, all the while being likely a crummy human being.
Yeah.
But it's fun to watch that dynamic with these kids following him around. And then when they confront him at the end, like they turn the tables on. And I thought that was good, kind of watching him on the defensive. And again, he's deflecting like, well, I never said I was a Jedi. But then SM-33 comes up with like the blowtorch, like standing by.
Yeah.
Like, I will make sure that you don't hurt these kids.
Yeah. That was good. That was so good.
So, I mean, this episode, while it was my favorite, there's not just a ton to it because we don't know much. But I did think it was really fun just to kind of see a few big things here and there, but it kept moving, and also you're building the characters, right? Like there's nothing crazy to talk about, like the world between worlds or retconning the Phantom Menace, or things like that we have been had to talk about in other series. Like this is just, as we're going, and it's fun. And breath of fresh air for this series. Now, going forward from here, again, we're looking blind. Where do you think we're going?
I think this is probably the most excited I've been about where a story's going in a while
Yeah.
with Star Wars. And I've really enjoyed a lot of it, right? Like that's not to say that I've watched the other Star Wars stuff and just kind of not had an interest in it. It's just, when I think back to like the things that I identify with Star Wars, like with the original trilogy and then the prequel movies, like those big moments, I think with storytelling in general, but especially with the Star Wars movies, like we're drawn to like getting to see individuals change, right? Over the course of a movie, over the course of events, like seeing how people become different people. That's like a huge part of the Star Wars universe, right? Like we get to see Luke Skywalker go from whining about power converters at Tossie Station to saying, I'm a Jedi like my father before me, right? Like you get to see that really cool transformation. And like we all cheer when Han Solo flies back at the trench run. It's like he did return, like he came back, right? Like,
He does it 4 times.
yeah. And then, even with the prequels, like even the opposite, watching a character fall, right? Like we get so invested in seeing this character who we know who they are. Like we know who Anakin Skywalker is at the beginning, right? Like he wants to do something great. He has really good intentions, and we watch him become corrupted and fall to this awful, awful state. And so I think about Star Wars and the stories I love. It's taking these characters and seeing how they start and really understanding them, but then seeing how they get to change. And I feel like that's where this show has started. I don't know that's where it's going to end, but that's one of the reasons I'm really excited is because I know who Jod is, right? Like I know what his intentions are. I know the type of person. So for the next 5 episodes, I get to see what changes him, like what makes him a different character and a different person. Same thing with the kids, like as they kind of grow up and learn about this galaxy. I'm really excited about getting to see how these characters change. And that's why I really love where we are in episode 3. The mystery is all about this planet. The mystery is not about these individuals and who they are. Like we get to see them change as they pursue this thing. And to me, that's such a big part of Star Wars, right? Is watching your characters learn and grow as they go through this adventure. And so I'm really excited about moving forward with this show because I feel like that's a big part of where they're moving. At least I hope it is.
No, I think you're right. Like we're gonna see Jod, I think, go more towards the Jedi, right? Like he's gonna go from scoundrel to more morals. I
Yeah.
think that's gonna be his big shift. I think we see Neil kind of Neville Longbottom it, right? Like he's gonna be brave at some point. Like at the end, he will be brave for KB. I think at some point she's gonna have to like forget what the odds say, and she's just gonna have to go with it at some point. As far as the Whim goes, the boy, I feel like he's gonna learn. He's gonna take the dark turn, probably. Like he's gonna learn that the Jedi messed up, and he's gonna have to realize like it's not just about Jedi. It's like you can do the right thing. Like you don't have to be a Jedi to do it. Like he's gonna get past the big idolization of whatever and realize normal people can do extraordinary things because he is just normal people. Unless they choose to make him force sensitive, which I think would be a mistake. But Fern, I'm not sure about.
She's interesting because
yeah,
she's really been put as a stereotypical character, right? Bossy, in control, and doesn't take anything from anybody. But at the same time, we haven't gotten a lot of her interacting on like a bigger level, and so I'm curious as to what they're going to do with her character moving forward.
Yeah, they haven't fumbled with anyone, but if they just haven't given development to anyone yet, it's her. We just know she's like the anti-Whim.
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting to see, like, does she lighten up a little bit? Maybe that's where she goes. But like as far as story goes, I have no clue where we're going. But as far as themes go, I think we're going to see all of those things. But story, I assume we're just planet hopping until they eventually get back where they want to be.
Yeah, I can't imagine that we spend the next 5 episodes on Attin. Right? Like, now, I definitely think, at the beginning, I'd have thought that's like the last episode. They make it home, they're reunited, happy ending. I definitely don't think that's last episode at this point. They've got to get back earlier than that because there's some things to figure out there.
And I'm not sure the happy ending happens on Attin.
Yeah, that's very, very possible at this point.
I think the happy ending is getting away. Like that's when
It
the
could be.
families get away with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another thing is where our characters end up in the resolution of this story is way up in the air.
It's a lot of fun to have no
Because
clue
do you
where
really
we're
just stay
going.
on a planet that's hidden away and pretend like you're not? I don't see that happening.
And maybe it stays hidden. Like that would be super interesting too. Like what if this isolated event stays whatever and it stays this hidden planet? I don't think it will, but like that would keep this story in its own bubble. But I don't know if that's what they're going for.
And I hope they don't like try to pinpoint where in the galaxy this is. I like the idea that literally nobody has any idea where this planet could possibly be in this galaxy. And I like that. And I hope it stays that way by the end of the show.
Yeah, I don't have faith that they'll do that. But, Mustafar has trees on it now. So who's to say like
It's true.
what are they going to do with this? So they can do a lot with planets over the course of decades. I mean
That's true.
that planet's growing grass and trees, 50 years after it was lava.
Pretty quick turnaround.
Not too sure I have a lot of faith about that. But the main thing on this is the story's going. It's fun. We
It
don't know
is.
where it's going. And it's like we got to wait a week to know where it's actually going to go next. And then another week and another week. And that's when you've got good TV. And
Agreed.
so I really do appreciate that we are just so far lost at this point. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
next week is the halfway point
That's
of
crazy.
the season. So like a little bit of a mid-season review. We'll do the same thing. So thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you next.